Hello and welcome, and it is that of Thursday Crypto Day, 25th of April 2018, and everything within your own risk, own reward, based on any information for trades within crypto space. When looking at SC earlier today on the 1 minute time frame, with a declining 18 average and price action breaking down below this uptrend line, was there any reason to think that it was a good time to go extremely bullish or extremely short? The period that followed such after the 228 close was a gain from 228 up to 246. A difference of close to 20 points. 7% in 1 minute and following minute. Price action jumps to 312 in under 60 seconds. Next minute, price jumps up to 399. Oh, okay. That's not quite double, but pretty darn near close. And then it actually manages to get above 400, and since then, it has corrected. And I'm going to show this on a shorter term time frame now, or longer term rather than the 1 minute. Yeah, there we see it on the hourly time frame. See how the support test works out. Daily chart. It's no surprise that this thing was able to get going. I mean, you don't know when you're going to have these kinds of phenomenal breakout moves. But it broke out above 18, 413, April 13th. It continued rallying with low volatility up to April 19th. Came back down to the band, spent about 5 days there, and off she goes. How do you do? Let's look next at OMI's Go, because it's going. Daily chart. This line in at the 170 handle. Yeah, it was resistance at the start of the year. In January, pulled back a bit. Then it resisted again. In the middle to the middle of February to the end of the month, pulled back pretty much exactly to this line. In fact, I got the 3171 handle at the end. This low is the 3032, so it pierced extra below by only 139 Satoshi. But this big move that occurred on April the 13th, which significantly got above the line, but more importantly, significantly got above this double hit resistance field. And support or resistance, what's the verdict? Any court case will not say resistance, it'll say support here at this time. Okay, so then, after getting above and making a move like this, huge gains, as it did a couple weeks back, when you are able to consolidate correctly within the gains, let people take some profits early on, and really let the orders fill up for the big buyers, and people just wanting to wait and see how is this going to play out. Well, it spent 5 days in this correctionary band, twice having great support at key fib. And then in today's session, it's blast off, getting out above the 18, having a previous hit of the last high, piercing well above it, but nonetheless piercing above it. What it did successfully do was support where it came from, which was basically this line. Now if it wants to upgrade supporting where it came from, I would have to think that roughly at around 193, which represents the resistance from here, and then in this case as well, the short-term level. Now as far as its next target, well, its next target is previous high. Previous high, it traded it traded there for several days at around 279 handle, but it did get up close to about 320. And when it gets there and it breaks, you're talking about uncharted territories, and it's not a surprise if something like that is to happen. And when that's the case, I don't get surprised if I see situations where it breaks resistance of an all-time high, and then it doubles, triples, or any type of magnificent gains. That's not uncommon, especially in this high volatile environment of the crypto trade. What's DGB showing me? Gigabyte, daily term time frame. It left the 18 average at around 270 Satoshi on the 10th of April. And it continuously had nice gains with small amounts of corrections here and there up to April the 19th. With one decent red candle down, it came back down to the correctionary phase, spending 4 additional days and what I like to call hugging the 18 average, and that's another way of saying it spends a lot of time in the majority of its period within such. And in the first 2 days it stayed above it. The next one, it had a price action that had a decent dip, but then recovered its gains. And now from the recovery from what was close to the 18 average of lows and a double retest of the previous low from the 21st or the 21st, it's now barely broken this level of resist. If you take a look at this, let's go even the hourly time frame just to see this little bit of this sell-off. And this is when like all of the crypto spaces were selling off, as I've been mentioning, that it's just common that they're all going to go up or down at times together. Right now, DGB is showing a phenomenal setup, and if we look at where this has the potential to go, well, we can do Fibonacci from so many different levels. The first one I would like to do is the all-time big and high and low. This was just a crazy move to go from point A to point B. Point B, which is around 2600, 2700, and point A is where it came from back in here. So if I try to look at what the high was, 2695, and if I go back in time before this happened, here I'm sitting with a low of like 16. So let's calculate it. And the key numbers, well, right now at 441. So we have the 61.8% at 380. Let's take a big look at that number, which would mean that this thing could go next up to 800. And let's take a look to see how relevant 800 is. So 380 and 800. 800's relevance is pretty darn near good. That's previous high. 300. It technically did support this area in here. And this chart doesn't look good on a logarithmic fashion on here. But 300, of course, has been decent support. Now this low in here was about 81. Does that match up with the 38.2? 113, close enough, really, considering the high volatility this has. But the whole point of this is, even on the weekly chart, after a green candle up from below the 18 average of lows on the third previous period, dated 409, you follow through that up with a small continuation up to the 18 highs, where it's not selling off, it's continuing to go higher, now getting above it. So the 18 average of highs, which is obviously flat, will start to rise if momentum doesn't slow down and keeps going further. If price action can stay above 353-ish area, 350, the 18 average of lows is going to start to rise. But you'll start to notice the same thing with the highs as well if momentum continues further. But it's looking pretty good again when we look at this on the daily term time frame. when you have this move, you come back to this area like this and it's just breaking it. Because when you're looking at price action, the first time it got near this 440 level is very overextended. Some people would say it's just a bad time to buy because you're so due for a correction, which obviously came. But now the sentiment towards looking at this on a bullish level at 440 is so much different, because now you're barely breaking previous resistance. And of course, long term, it could easily go to 800. But even just just looking at this blindly, where was the key levels in which it came from? Well, it's already hit this previous level. So we're looking at the congestion top here at around 560. And then, I mean, there's not much overall, but yeah, 560 to 660 area before, of course, the previous high level. That's, of course, a DGB. Stellar Lumens XLM, after having several days retracing back down to this 18, hitting the lows. After several days going higher, filling some of this gap fill, as I like to call it. Probably not the best word for it because it means something else, I guess. But it had this empty space. It came down to it, found support in here. Now we followed yesterday's session up with a nice green candle that is now getting above this 18 average of highs. If this can continue on with decent follow through, you don't see any selling, you see price action holding 4,000, and definitely momentum crossing 4,400 and change, that this thing is ready to break this level of resistance. And last spot it came to was this little area here. Now we got the previous high at around 5,600 up to about 6,200 on the daily term time frame, which is an all-time high. And when you reach an all-time high, it can, if it breaks it, who knows what type of further gains can follow. But the gains it had before, this is just phenomenal within a short period of time. Last April, oh, how do you do? 279 up to 4,300. Oh yeah, 17 or 16x, not bad. And let's do it again. They did it again right before Christmas. 400 up to 6,300. Ooh, and about 14x gain. Again, how do you do? Well, 15x gain from, well, 22,000 is 10x. 30,000, you're starting to talk about the 14x gain. Just some numbers. Yeah, weekly time frame. I'm liking the look of the setup too. How you got this looking candle as it is. Definitely another reason this can state it's ready for a move higher. Steam has had a great day yesterday, where it managed to barely break above its previous resistance high. It has pulled back since, coming down to the 18 average of highs, rallying from that point. But when we look at the intraday session, high of 48,009, low of 38.6. Mathematics. Well, it's about 10, and then 620 on 9. Well, that's 280. 1,280. Or 12,000, actually. Well, just say 12,000. That's over 30% volatility. Okay, that's what these markets can give us, but this thing keeps on showing its trend. It's point where I talk about like two teams or two people, two participants in a game where they each take turns battling each other for supremacy. Bears versus the Bulls. Well, from June in here, we can see the Bulls had their turn, and they had a pretty decent one. And then from right around the middle of December up into January, the Bulls had a good turn. And then from the middle of January to around April the 1st. How about those Bears? Well, the Bulls have been in command now for into the 4th week. How much further this is going to go? Well, there has been several times where this thing has went up just 4 weeks before. You look at this, March 6th, 14th. How's like April 20th looking? Oh yeah, then it goes up more. So maybe it's overextended and we're going to see a top and the Bears are going to go again. But right now, of course, the Bulls in control of the market. Let's move on to the main one. To finish this off, that would be Bitcoin. And it had to move up to its key Fibonacci 9500 level, pulled back to the 18 average of highs, and is having a pause session. Not much really going on at all. When we take a look at this next on a 400-minute time frame within this market, and it's just give me a, there we go. It's had a little bit of a pullback, but when you see, oh my goodness, this thing is well below the 18 now. It's been there for a while. You know what? Definitely signs that it could potentially go lower. It's definitely not as oversold now at 88.43 as it was as it first got there. Meaning it's just not, it's more likely to go down than it was then. So we have possibility where if it comes back lower, we got area of previous resistance in here. But I think the hour time frame is going to be one of the ways to look at this as far as this correctionary move, because as it broke down from this 18 average on the early session on the 25th, or day and a half ago, then it had a good leg lower, matching up with this previous support level. The rally came up to the 18 average, which was your first test of this down move. And the bears won that test, obviously, as the red candle on the 1800-hour time frame was followed through with another red candle, and then 2 periods later making its low. Now, since that point, it comes up to the 18 average again. It resisted breaking below it, but it didn't go below the previous low, barely piercing above it. And then at about 6 o'clock this morning, the price gets to the 18 average, and since then, there has been about 8 periods, 8 hours or such, where it's just going sideways. The 18 average has flattened out, so therefore resistance is clear at 89.08 in here and up to 89.60. So 8,900 to 8,960 is the range of the big resistance. And as it stands now within the setup, getting above that is making its statement that it's ready to revert the trend back towards the upside. And the support level is in at 86.63, which when we look at this on a 3-hour time frame, which right now is resisting the 18 average of lows, that can look like a very, very bearish setup. But the bottom line is you can make a case of the symmetrical triangle of these higher lows, and like we see in the hourly time frame, showing neutrality signs. But if it does break below, I wouldn't be surprised if it leaves this 18 and you have a decent size red, probably down to about 8,300. And when we look at this on a more longer term point of view, let me just get a different Coinbase chart. This is attempt number 2 right now in the reversal of the trend, as this was attempt number 1, which ultimately didn't pass, with the double top having, well, this leg lower. So now it's had enough time and a decent enough rally where this is clear that this is having attempt number 2. So if I'm going to see any type of weakness within later on with this 18 average, which right now of course is rising, price action is supporting the 18 highs right now, which is a bullish situation. But if I see later on weakness within this 18 and that it's going to show bearish signals, then we got to start talking about how it's probably not going to have much support here. And it's probably going to come down towards this 3,000 area, which I can show on the Bitstamp exchange with my Fibonacci lines. And with this support, which has been tested twice, if it's showing that failed breakout on a lower high, then it's not going to look pretty as far as where the next price action goes. On the weekly chart, the price action has managed to get close to the 18 average of highs, which it's in at, let me get the exact number, 18 average of highs. You can see the blue line up on the left where it says WMA, 18 high, 10,091. And if you want to get these indicators in here, this is on TradingView, right-click indicators, and moving average weighted. It's fine, moving average right here. Click on it twice. You're going to need two of them, one for the high, one for the low. And then you'd be able to format it. And then within the inputs, this is where I have 18 periods. And then, of course, one represents a high. The other represents that of the low. But if the price starts to fall within this 18, which is basically 78 or 79.45 right now, so 8,000. You can almost call that, let's just take a look at 8,000 on the daily chart. Yeah, I mean, a little pierce below the 18 average of lows isn't a big deal. That's normal. So 8,000 is what I'd be looking for as that major level that you need to see failure from for probability to be a lot higher than it is now for that of a test of the 3,000 level. And that 3,000 level represents a 38.2% down correction from the lows in here and the highs of about 20,000. The first line at 62.45 represents 23.6% down. Of course, it has already been supported on two different occasions. The more likely support is tested, the more likely it is taken out. And let's just quickly look at the 3-day chart just for something to do. And with risk resistance, it's really got to start to show clear breakouts at about 12,000, getting above this high for the market to be ending this correctionary downward / now sideways range and resumption of what was a very spectacular multi-year, lot of month bull market. And that will be it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.